Hello, my name is Hans Hansson with FixSF, and I'd like to welcome you to the relaunch of FixSF. FixSF started several months before the pandemic, and it was established for the purpose of looking at issues in San Francisco that can be fixed. These are projects that basically have been funded or could be funded. We're looking at projects that basically would allow us to take care of improving San Francisco sooner than later. So who am I? I'm a local San Franciscan, born and raised in the Sunset District, and have been here my entire life. I have been active politically over the years, but now I've chosen not to be involved politically, but instead to write articles to bring forth the discussion of what can we do to fix San Francisco. And FixSF is basically an addition to that, to provide our viewers the ability to see problems, understand possible solutions to those problems, and then take an active approach to contacting our Board of Supervisors and our mayor and telling them we need to fix this problem, and this is how we do it. So today we're going to talk about a very, very interesting topic, and that is our overgrown trees throughout San Francisco. So prior to several years ago, each building owner was responsible to take care of their trees. But the city passed an ordinance that allowed the city to now take over the responsibility of maintaining all the trees in San Francisco. And when you look at some of the videos that we shot for you, you'll see what kind of mess we really have throughout the city. First, let's talk about the potential ramifications of overgrown trees. Besides the obvious, broken sidewalks because the trees are too big, that can cause slippage and falls. You can also look at the fact that the trees are overgrown to a point where they're actually growing in and around windows of homes, which you'll see in some of the videos that we have here today. These are things that basically detract from the beauty of trees and make it more of a nuisance for owners. So when the city took over the responsibility of taking over the responsibility of the trees, most owners were not aware that that the city was taking over the responsibility of the trees. So as a result, a lot of owners continued to trim their trees. As a result, the city would file actual fines against these homeowners for taking on trimming their own trees. My mother, who was over 90 years old, was one of the participants of a fine that she received when she chose to trim her tree, which she has done religiously over the last number of years, and she was fined for trimming the tree as well as trimming it not to the specifications of the city. As a result of that, my 90-year-old mom was actually brought to essentially a judge that handles trees, and she was looking at a $2,500 fine. Fortunately for my mom, that was waived, and but she was told that she had to go to a tree class to learn about trees and how trees should be taken care of. This is again another example of overregulation of our city, our bureaucracy, and the reality is the reason why my mother took care of the tree is because the tree wasn't being taken care of. So when you look at the pictures and the videos that we've included in this video, you'll notice not only are the trees overgrown and going into windows of homes, some of them are being tipped over. A lot of them have broken the sidewalks, which could lead to this tripping issue that we talked about. The other thing that's really, really scary is the fact that these trees are actually growing, in a lot of cases, between the power lines. And they're so tall in some cases that those power lines are in a position of real threat. Above a lot of those power lines happen to be transformers. And if you recall the bad fires that occurred in Sonoma and Napa, a lot of that occurred when the telephone lines caught fire and blew out the transformers, and then all havoc broke loose. Well, the reality is, if you've got these trees growing into the telephone lines and close to those transformers, you're really putting our city in serious jeopardy of major, major fires. If any one of these trees caught fire through vandalism or whatever, those trees could actually catch fire, lead to the wires, lead to the transformer, and a whole block get burned down. And this is all over the city. You can go from block to block to block, particularly the neighborhoods that have overhanging electrical lines versus having them put underground. They're particularly vulnerable to this. Now, why isn't the city taking care of all the trees, since in fact they are supposed to, they're funded to? Well, it's the usual explanation of the fact that they're understaffed, they're overwhelmed, and they can't get to all the trees on a regular basis. So as a result of that, you have the problem we have today. The city is in fact trimming trees, but it's selective. There's typically no warning. Again, in my mother's block in the Sunset District, all of a sudden they showed up and they started trimming trees, but there was never any notice period or notification that was given to any of the neighbors. And the trees were cut in accordance to what the city wanted those trees to be cut, instead of maybe what the owner had wanted as a suggestion, or how high or how low it should be cut. None of that is into the decision-making process of the owner of the tree, only the city. So I think that the city taking over the responsibility of trees is something obviously the voters voted on. But this is one example of something that can be fixed. You've got the money set aside to do it. You've got a department. It's just not being efficiently done. And the consequences of these trees to the public safety is tremendous. You have trees that can fall down. You have trees that catch fire and lead to serious, serious damages. You got trip and fall issues. You've got trees that could tumble. You've got trees that are resting against homes, resting against windows, and all of which is unacceptable and not what that proposition would have passed, what was passed for. It was passed so that the trees would be taken care of in a common way, so that all trees would be cut and taken care of, instead of some owners that were taking care of the trees and other trees that were not being taken care of. Now this is a way in which the city can take care of all the trees, but in fact they're not doing it. So I really urge you to contact members of the Board of Supervisors and the mayor and tell them we need to take care of our trees. It is a public safety hazard. It's something that gets very little or no attention, and we need to have our city representatives on top of this issue to force the department head of tree cutting to basically do what they're supposed to be doing, and doing it throughout the city in a common sense manner, which is not being done today. Now, before we close, I want to talk about Union Square, and specifically the Powell Street trees. These are trees that basically surround the turnstile of the cable cars on Powell and Market Street. First of all, these trees were the wrong trees when they planted them. They should not have been the type of trees that were originally put there. Those trees have grown way too tall, have stymied the light there, but more importantly, as they drop leaves everywhere around the streets, causing, particularly when it's wet, slippage problems. So as tourists, you have tourists going by, light is blocked out, so it's very, very shady. And then you have all of these little leaves scattered throughout the area. This is unacceptable. This is one of the most iconic tourist attractions in the world. And yet, the simplicity of just cutting the trees, replacing the trees, is something that, again, because of our bloated bureaucracy we have, we can't even do that right. I urge you also, when you're talking about trees to your supervisors and to the mayor, bring forward the issue of Powell Street. why is it that we have overgrown trees, the wrong trees? Why can't they be replaced? Why can't they be trimmed? And do it now. There's no reason. And we need to have that fixed as well. I want to thank you for listening. We're going to plan on doing these podcasts on a regular basis from now on. And hopefully this will generate a lot of interest and a lot of support from all of you so that the members of the Board of Supervisors and the mayor will listen and actually do something to fix SF.